Episode 5 of The Curse, in which Whitney and Asher here pose for the camera, holding a camera and a boom mic, as if they themselves are filming the show, which they are not. A lot of this episode is really about how Whitney is relying on her crew, right? And she wants this control. She wants to do things a certain way, but doesn't have the courage or the it isn't going to get involved face to face with the people below her in a way, and she does see them, the crew and the people of Espanola, a bit below her. Like she wants to see them, and she tries to portray that she is on equal footing and she's like one of them, but as we see in this episode, I think she comes to terms with the fact she's like in this dejected, depressed mode at the end of this episode, where she realizes she has to compromise a lot of her beliefs in her and the way she wants to do things here, and ends up realizing she has to sell to probably some dude that doesn't share her politics, doesn't share what she believes in, but is probably the best fit be practical and choose this buyer, the best fit for the house in this short time frame they have. So I did focus a lot on Whitney this episode, but we do get some good Asher moments. But it does continues to touch on the themes about ownership, land ownership, who owns land, who lives here, colonialism, the idea of like them intruding into this pueblo, this town, that was the land of the natives who lived here, right? And and the people they want to attract to come live here perhaps don't share those same values. A lot of that theme flowing through this episode, much like the rest of the season so far, right? But let's get into the breakdown and actually start diving deep into what actually is going on. What actually is happening with them here? Why are they holding that camera and boom mic? Let's get into it, because really it starts off with these potential homeowners. I think they're recording. They're actually starting to shoot the episode. Perhaps this could be still the pilot episode, right? As they're trying to portray this happy couple as potential as homeowners, the ones that are going to buy this house, the eco-friendly passive living house. And we see the guy here sweating profusely. And it's not much of a concern to them, I guess. You would think they would give him a different shirt, but I think they're trying to illustrate how like they're not really concerned with the people who are buying, as long as they somewhat share the values of Whitney, right? Being eco-friendly. There's that shot we have there. So a little bit before this, we have Whitney having this conversation with the camera dude, right? The camera person. Or actually after this. So, here they're posing for like a publicity photo, really, for their show. Smiling with the camera and the boom mic, as if maybe they're the one shooting, or they participated somehow in the actual hard labor of shooting this document, or this TV show, this reality show. But again, they're just posers, right? Because they would never really do it, right? She even jokes about like, oh, pretty easy, I could do it. With the camera man here. And it's a really interesting scene because it really just shows the power dynamics here, right? How she has all the power, even though she jokingly says that, of course, she didn't really mean it. And it kind of indicates that it kind of shows like, yeah, actually, they do need all these people below them. They need these the crew, the camera workers, the boom operators, the set designers, the PAs, and this guy's jokingly like saying like, oh, maybe you should treat me better or something. And it's like, sure, you could do it. I quit, I think he says, right, as a joke. But then it continues awkwardly, but then you're not quite sure if Whitney's actually being serious. He's like, you should, monitor your tone here, respect me. Those jokes are a little bit over the line. I'm the boss here, etc., etc. And then, oops, just joking, gotcha. Because he got really nervous there that she was chastising him, But of course, she has that control the whole time, She, even though she jokes about it, it's actually true. She could probably fire him, and he has to kind of like do as she says. And then, so you have another indication of the power imbalance that maybe Whitney tries to play it off as like, no, she's equal. She's an equal to the crew or to the people who live at Española in general, the community. But in reality, we can see that, it's not quite like that simple. She in fact holds the power. And I guess they're trying to close the deal here. They're trying to get them to sign a contract. They're worried that the boom mic person is like possibly hearing in on them, because even though he's lowered the totem pole, as so to speak, they still have they're still paranoid that maybe they're he at least has that power to actually listen in with the recording equipment. Of course, he clarifies like, no, it was just clean the knobs, and it was all off. And I don't know, maybe there's a suspicion that the people, because I think that this crew member is probably even could be part of the community that they're here. A lot of times when shows go to shoot different places, they hire local people to even on the crew, even sometimes. And so, who knows? There's this. I think Asher and Whitney have this paranoid idea that the people are always looking at them and judging them, right? And because they want to fit in, they want to seem like they're good people. They're not intruding. So that's just another, another example of how that can be possible. Like, yeah, maybe they are being listened to, and we don't know. But I don't really think he was really recording. I think it's mostly just paranoia. So here we have Asher trying to get them to sign a special agreement here, which basically is like the tribe that lives in the area has been, wants to I think charge some taxes or something from the homeowners, from the people who are living there, and some fees, because it is rightfully their land, right? Long ago they've been colonized pretty much, and this is so that's kind of the idea. But of course they're a bit scared as potential buyers of the house that it could be taken from them. There's been news reports on it, Asher's trying to say like, oh, those are just sensationalized media reports. You don't have to worry about that. This will always be your home. But of course, if you were buying a home, you would want to like get a lawyer, someone to like read all these nitty gritty details. And Asher's looking pretty sketchy here. He even compares this, which I found interesting, to saying like, oh, that this, I didn't need to tell you the whole details of this, easement controversy, because it doesn't apply here. It's not like, it's as if, why would I tell you that? It's like me comparing this to telling you about some land issues in the Gaza Strips, in Palestine. So he's connecting this, to the modern colonialism and genocide that's happening in Palestine right now, and particularly in the Gaza Strip, not in the Gaza Strip, particularly in the West Bank, where there's settlers there taking people's homes, Palestinians' homes, for their own. Even people, coming from outside of Israel to claim land there. So it in fact is very much similar to what's happening here, in the U.S. and particularly in this town, where there's this tribe that has been here for ages, and now they're like building these nice little eco homes to get a whole new class of people to come in and invade. So it's not too dissimilar. So of course Asher thinks it's pretty dissimilar. It doesn't think it compares or should be brought up at all. But I think the show is kind of saying like, no, actually there is a comparison here. There is a connection. And of course, they're reluctant and they're not going to sign it right away. Asher failed. Whitney just wants it to get done quickly. Her approach is a little more aggressive, as we'll see. They start comparing the house to a prison, because they can't just how the recycling of the water works in the bathroom. The water in the sink goes into the toilet, all that, which seems pretty cool. It might be, I'm sure it's more. It might even be in the long run less expensive, right? So that's the whole idea. Like in the long run, you save energy and money, right? Of course, upfront cost is a lot. But then it's also about the climate control here, which we'll get into, which is why also they're concentrating, or they're focusing, or at least give a lot of they show a lot how this guy's sweating all the time, right? It's pretty prominent. Like we get to see that, right? Because he's not accustomed to the temperature, to the high heats. He wants a comfortable, probably 70 degrees at all times or something like that, right? He's probably accustomed to that. And they go in to say like, hey, like the temperature is regulated here naturally. There's no AC, and if you open like a window or a door, it takes like hours for it to stabilize again back to a comfortable 78 in the summer and a 60 something in the winter. And so we get to this shows another instance of the homeowners, like we saw with Vic in the previous episode, him throwing out the gas stove, like these homeowners have come to expect, or the buyers have come to expect a certain way of living, and Whitney can't really expect everybody to like adhere to the strict passive house guidelines, of like to make it to live in that way, because it's not really convenient or even good for a lot of people. I mean, some people, this guy can't really, he's not gonna live comfortably in a house in a place that's always like high temperatures, in the summers. People with different health conditions, who knows? There's different situations too. but it's not realistic for most people. And Whitney's is naive about that, and she's coming to learn that in this episode in particular. And of course, she kind of like looks down at these people a little bit. It's like, oh, like you're not appreciating this. This is the reason I made this home this way, so you can actually live in this environmentally free way, you know. He's trying to be funny. It's not that funny. And oh, here's an interesting scene where Dougie is on Asher's phone, right? Dougie continues to be a weirdo, right? He puts a dating app on his Asher's phone, and thought it would just be funny to show Whitney that Asher was cheating on him or on her. And you would think that Asher, like, at this point, wouldn't want to be friends with this guy anymore, right? Like, that's a pretty shitty thing to do, just for that lulz. He treats it like no big deal, Dougie. But I guess he's stuck with them while they're making this show, you know. But probably one of the sleaziest things that Dougie has done so far, right? And his hands are all wet. Of course, he always has like wet hands, and he's unkept and not quite tidy and considerate. I think he's just munching on ice or something, right? And that's why he wet Asher's phone as well. Not a nice guy. So Whitney is trying to explain the whole situation about the ACs, like you won't get your passive home certification if you bring in an AC that is not compliant. And of course, they just want to get a free AC from their friend. They don't want to go shopping for an eco-friendly AC. And she gets pissed off. Here, Asher's like trying to look on his list of jokes, or the idea of like how to be funny on the show, right? Let's take a look at what it says. Jokes for the show: be self-deprecating, e.g., James Gordon. I think James Gordon is like that talk show host that's not funny. Your energy bill will be cheaper than my haircut, which he does use, I think, in the show. Voice race-based humor. Pop culture is funny. Pepsi commercial, parentheses. I think they're referring to the Pepsi commercial where one of was it Kendall Jenner or someone gave a Pepsi can to the police during a protest or something. Some stupid asinine commercial trying to be relevant, and it was actually stupid. Never try to be funny. Always punch up. Never something or another. And remember the rules of 3. No politics. Puns are safe. Something about passive aggressiveness, right? Which will come up later in the episode. So interesting little list there, right? Of the kind of humor he's trying to stick to, and so he's doing his homework. He's taking those lessons to heart, right? That the corporate joke seminar he went to from the previous episode. While Whitney has had up to here with this couple, and is gonna be a lot more aggressive in getting them to sign the agreement here. And Asher's trying to be a little bit more diplomatic, and And of course, the couple's upset about what that. She's like, she's a lot. She says about Whitney. And this moment is interesting because here we have Asher reacting upset, right? He wants to stand up for his wife here. It's part of his journey in this series. It seems is like he's trying to, as we saw in the first episode in particular, where in that TV interview where he shuts down that reporter from asking those questions about Whitney's parents. Here he tries to stick up for his wife again, although he's not in view of his wife. There's no one. He's putting on almost like a performance of being defensive, but he can't quite contain his anger, right? And like to what extent is this a show, or is this like a performance really? It seems like a passionate outburst without much thought, especially here, like like that's pretty intense, and they thought Whitney was was a lot. It turns out Asher has similar issues. It just shows him differently, right? And that's kind of the point of that little scene there. And maybe we'll see later on Asher again, most likely trying to defend Whitney in a future episode, and we'll see where that character arc goes. And so basically, Whitney's like, okay, we can't sell the house. They're not serious about about the rights of the natives that live here, of the tribe, So again, she's basically, I feel like she does have like some good qualities and good intentions when it comes to being considerate of of the people who live here. She's even though she doesn't think thoroughly she doesn't think thoroughly about it or consider it that much. She actually wants to at least appear, or at least she thinks a little bit more about it than Asher does when it comes to the tribe. But it's still kind of like this performative action of like her dismissing these home buyers because they wouldn't sign this agreement, as if it was a simple little thing that they didn't need to read into that much, right? I mean, anytime you sign something like that, you wanna take your time and understand it clearly. And Asher at least is trying to say like, hey, let's maybe write it better so it can be more, so they can understand it better. But here Doug is like, well, if we're not gonna go with this couple, you better find someone else quick. Maybe even let's just have some random people here pretend to be the home buyers, because that's what I did in a bunch of other shows I worked on. It's all just make believe, anyways, whatever. I guess showing how like in general a lot of these reality shows, aren't really reality. They're just kind of like a pretend version of reality. And I imagine even a lot of times are actors playing along, and if not actors, then just like coached performers. And then things get changed, editor room, etc. But now we're going fully acting here, and Whitney has to like kind of grapple with the idea of like, okay, maybe it's better we do this so we can actually show the type of people we want buying these homes and living in these eco-friendly homes. So she calls up Kara, her artist friend. She calls her friend, and she agrees to come and play the role. To her, she's a performance artist, so it's a performance for her. She finds it interesting. And Whitney's like pretends that she couldn't even afford this place. I think Kara's like, yeah, like, oh, it'd be fun to pretend that I could even afford a house like this. And then when he's like, oh yeah, I couldn't afford it either. Even though Kara's like, yeah, you're lying, I know it. Whitney's like, no, I'm not lying. But she is. I think she's trying to even like buy into herself in that moment. She's trying to again perform to be an equal with her, in terms of economically and in society, societal. And it's quite obvious she isn't, and everyone can see. But she's trying to, at least in that moment, believe like, oh no, I couldn't afford this, justify in her head that she's just like Kara. Because she wants to be in the green group. She wants to be in the cool group. And so Kara here, puts on this performance. Oh, this is all great. And she like, complains about the crime rate in the area, and, kind of playing out to be this like, this young rich person who's concerned about the criminal activity in the area and being safe and wanting security. And so it's kind of satirizing a home buyer like that would buy this house, and at the same time making fun of Whitney and Asher, right, and kind of the show in general, because she's kind of like, this is probably like part of her life as a performing artist, to put on this performance, even if no one's really, if anyone, if it does get on the show, then people would see it, performance. But I think her intention really is kind of just to poke fun and kind of move Whitney in a certain way, to hopefully kind of reevaluate what she's doing with her life, But Whitney does catch on. She's like, is she making fun of us, and of course she's not. She's kind of too, doesn't have the courage to actually confront Kara about it. She doesn't ever do that, right? She's pretty passive herself when it comes to that, and we'll see that later in this episode. A little more. She like kind of brushes it off, but clearly she wants someone else to. She can't have Kara being the home buyer in this episode of TV here, making fun of us. And here's like an interesting shot that I thought was very interesting, very telling of just the themes in general of this show. Like they're discussing the idea of like finding another person, and like how like it's probably better to have actors, that way it can portray the feeling of the show better. We can portray our message better. And so she wants to go to, I think, Santa Fe, somewhere close to scout for some potential actors and cast to actually have someone more to her liking to be these so-called home buyers. And then we get a shot from inside. I believe it's a neighbor's house, right? Just a random neighbor. She's just relaxing the bottom corner here. Really interesting how it's framed here. Like we just see Asher and Whitney through the window there, and perhaps this person can actually listen in. And at the end of this scene, she does even look in the camera. So it's like, she could probably been listening. When someone's that close to your window, you can definitely hear them talking, And of course, they're oblivious as usual to what they're doing. And earlier they were paranoid and scared that they were being recorded. Here she is, the woman just like looking at the camera, almost like as if like she hears what they said, and she's like, oh my gosh, these people, and like another interesting thing is that Whitney's like very in her head, very much has this inflated ego where she's like says, "Oh, I can envision this person, this perfect home buyer in my head. I can envision it in my head." It's, because she can see in her head, she thinks she can make it happen in reality. You know, she's that conceited about it, and full of herself in that way. And like this looking at the camera also kind of reminds me, it could be that she's looking past the camera, but she's like at the bottom of the screen. Not quite the focal point, but I guess it illustrates, the bigger theme of like, let's give a little peek of like what it's actually like for a long-time resident of this area, to experience these people, trying to make it big in their town by selling these fancy houses to outside people, pretending to be all, eco-friendly and nice to the community and the environment, where really they're just enriching themselves in the end, right? And as we see later on, Whitney's motivation is also just to get from out of the claws of her parents, really, and out of their shadow. So then we move on from here, and it turns out Kara and Dougie are actually having a good old time. Like, they're obviously opposites, and Kara just like even mentions how she finds Dougie disgusting, but I think she finds him interesting, at least, and a fascinating person, perhaps someone she could learn from and use for her own artwork. So, in a way, Kara could also be kind of like a different version of Whitney, like someone who also takes from the people around her to like improve her own idea of herself, and so she can work on her artwork, but but she's like from a lower position than Whitney, so her art is a lot more, and her life experience is a lot more interesting than what Whitney has to offer. A lot more engaging, and has more to say, right? Has a bit more interesting perspective, more lived-in perspective. And so I think Dougie sees Kara's brashness and her just confidence is very attractive, right? Just of course he's interested in this person. When he tries to see what's going on, like what are they talking about, she like asks her like, hey, you're supposed to sign this release or something because we're gonna use your artwork. And then she's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll look into that. I forgot about that. Again, not being confrontational. We'll see. Maybe I feel like we're probably setting up in the future episode for her to confront Kara. Whitney and Kara have a big old battle of words in later on, maybe. But right now, she's not being confrontational at all. As we see in this episode, she's pretty scared to get into conflict. Although, with the couple with that the whole agreement with about the signing the thing for the tribes, she got pretty miffed there, right? And so she's gonna go and find replacements, and she's taking the assistant now, this production assistant, to help out, because of course, she's not gonna actually go up to the people herself. On the way, she stops by the coffee place, and sees that someone's being arrested because they were stealing some pants, right? And she's upset about this because she doesn't want to be seen as someone coming in, to the community to like get people arrested and call the police on people all the time. She doesn't want to be the Karen, right? That's one of her main concerns. And so, and and this is actually another one of the decent qualities about her, right? She may be naive and may be like quite not aware of the chaos she brings in her wake of coming into this community, but she at least doesn't want to doesn't want to call the cops on frivolous things, like small thefts that really, in the grand scheme of things, don't affect the business at large, right? It's a harmless crime, and she understands that people, you know, have hard lives where they can't quite make ends meet, and maybe they have to steal sometimes. Like, she's understanding of that. She's at least aware of that. But the funny thing is that she tried to call off the arrest, right? She's like, she doesn't want to press charges. She doesn't want to press charges, and the cop, it's like, you should file a complaint or something to the DA, right? And she's not gonna do that. We know that she's not gonna do that. She's just gonna kind of forget about that and try for that not to happen again. So she may talk big about situations like this, about not wanting to be a menace to the community, but doesn't think it through all the way, right? As I said before. Which makes her an interesting character, because she's not completely an evil person. She has some considerations, but it's not quite enough. It's like she tries really hard to be an ally, but can't quite see the forest for the trees. And she doesn't want to. She even tells her assistant, "Don't point at me from afar because it looks creepy that I'm looking on at them." So she doesn't even want to face these people face to face here. She wants someone else to do it. She's accustomed to people under her to do the hard labor, right, of actually trying to convince her or trying to find people and talk to people about possibly about being in a TV show, but she does seem to be good at casting in general, right? Like, these are some good looking people she's got for the show, right? And they agree, and of course they want to be on that guy wants to be on screen with his actual wife and not the pretend wife of the baby. And Whitney has some issues with that, because she has this vision in her head, and I guess it's not as easy as just envisioning something in your head and producing it in real life. You actually have to do some hard work and for that to happen. And I guess eventually she relents. She's like, okay, fine, whatever. Trying to be friendly again. I think that's the moment she reminds Kara about the release she has to sign about using her art in the TV show. But Dougie and her just relax, just like chilling. Asher is probably on the phone with another potential homeowner. He'll reveal in a later scene. She's upset that Whitney's upset that she's like, damn, you couldn't convince them. And she actually now pretends that it wasn't her idea all along about her splitting up the real life couple, right? Blames it on the assistant. Again, she can't face that responsibility. She can't she never wants to be seen as in the wrong. Very concerned about how she appears, even though it's not technically being filmed right now. she wants to be seen as the good guy in the room, right? Another part of her performance. And then her parents show up, and part of the performance is being more of a self-made woman, right? She doesn't want to be associated with her parents because they have a bad reputation of being these awful slumlords, these landlords who care not for their residents. And in a way, I think this moment here of her like lashing out at her parents can be a little bit relatable, right? I mean, we all, as we all age into adulthood, we don't always want our parents to be meddling in our business, right? And we want to be seen as truly independent adults. And of course, the reality is that this property, which is revealed here, was given to her by her parents, and so Whitney is still kind of playing the role of like of a bratty child in a way that she doesn't want to be portrayed as or seen to be like in public. But inside the privacy of this car, she lashes out like kind of like a little bit of an entitled teenager here almost. Like, hey, like that's my land, my house, my housing, my land that you gave to me, and you got to butt out, So she's not completely aware, of course, not self-aware of her position in all this. But pretty harsh. She like gets him to leave. Pretty harsh there. And now we have the real life couple pretending to be the homeowners or the home buyers of this place. Rehearse lines. It seems that they're delivering, and this guy goes into a song number. Starts singing, it's kind of out of nowhere, but it's kind of like unsurprising for a show like this, right? You kind of expect unexpected things like someone just busting out and singing. Of course, to him, I feel like this and his wife encourages him to do it. He's a bit nervous about it. But to him, it's like his one shot, his opportunity to be seen by the world. Like, he never thought or considered being on TV, but apparently he sings really well. He has a good singing voice, and it's his moment to shine and to show the world, like, hey, look at this talent I have, and so why not? So it's a little bit weird and out of place, right, in this reality TV show, but what other time will he have this opportunity? Probably never, right? So just like a funny little incident that is part of this production now that, they will probably cut out if they do use this. I don't know. I'm sure Dougie would want to keep this in. They're just talking about random stuff. Just chit-chatting, getting to know each other. Excuse me. I'm trying to get, different takes of that. One with her not touching her belly. So, in case they don't want to use the idea of her being pregnant. But I don't know, it seems like it wasn't quite what they needed, right? I don't think they'll be using this scene. I think next episode we're probably gonna see them do a shoot with the homeowner buyer who, I keep saying that, home buyer who will show up at the end of the episode, which they'll get into right now. They're actually at this like local restaurant here in the area. He like tries to say something in Spanish. He fails a little bit. Tries to seem like one of them, like, we're all friends. Um, Obviously not. He's just a customer here, and I'm sure Whitney's a bit bummed now. Like, damn, like we need more time to find the right people. And I think she's like, yeah, they were considering calling back like this 20-year-old who was like in college or something to come. Their parents are gonna buy her the house and stuff, and she doesn't want that because she doesn't want to fill the neighborhood with, as she says here, with a bunch of rich kids, right? Her parents bought them a house, because she wants to be perceived like the good kind of home sellers who are contributing to the community in a good way, not just gentrifying it. And Asher laughs here, right? Because he thinks she's being self-deprecating, and she doesn't even realize that, oh yeah, I'm one of those rich kids whose parents bought them a house and who's actually bought them a bunch of houses so she can sell them, remodel them and make them eco-friendly, etc. And then in this moment, she's like, "Oh, actually, yeah, I was being that was intentional. I was being self-deprecating." Another moment where we realize she's not quite aware. She's not quite self-aware. But now Asher's trying to be, the more practical businessman, and reveals that he actually called a previous potential buyer to see if they're still interested, Mark Rose, who seems to be a conservative guy, a guy that doesn't share the politics of Whitney, and so she doesn't want to sell it to him. Of course, she wants only like liberal owners of buyers to sell to, and apparently he had we will see like a flag with a Blue Lives Matter American flag sticker on his car, on his truck. And so she don't want that. She's like, can't believe that she went behind her back to call the broker up to set this meeting again. But Asher's like, trying to convince her, like, hey, you got to be more practical. You got to realize by now that, like, hey, like, you can't expect all these these buyers to like reflect, our values exactly. That's unrealistic, and you can't expect them to follow the passive guidelines to be a passive, environmentally friendly homeowner. But apparently this Mark guy does want to is environmentally conscious in some ways, right? Although he doesn't share Whitney's views and everything, he's probably the best fit technically for the house, right? He loves he comes in, he's like, oh yeah, you got those the toilets. I love the toilet, the way it recycles the water. This guy this actor is Dean Cain. I remember him from the Superman show a long time ago. He used to be Superman on TV. But interesting actor. I think we will see more of him. I feel like we'll have a whole scene of them shooting an episode of him touring the house, right? Whitney reluctantly accepting, most likely, but that seems where it's going. I mean, to cast an actor like this, I think, indicates that they're going to use him more. But yeah, so like basically, he's like, yeah, like I support the police here. I support different organizations, the firefighters, etc. So he's not being very specific about his politics, but we get to understand that he's probably like more like a libertarian, off the grid type of guy, right? Who's probably concerned about government encroachment. At the same time, he has he has Apache ancestry, apparently, is what he says. So he's very concerned about the tribes getting their fair shake and getting paid, for people living in this area, right? So it looks like he will sign that agreement, So it seems to be a perfect fit, right? Of course, Whitney's probably like still seething and like upset about the whole thing, that he's even here, but can't quite bring herself to acknowledge any of the positive here. Positive in terms of someone trying to sell a house. He may not be. I imagine he may not be. He's not going to be the greatest neighbor, in the sense of he probably does represent, more upper class type of person who's not so concerned with the community at large. Although, because he's all about being off the grid and stuff, he seems to be more isolationist, even though he does seem to have a bubblier personality that Asher comments on later. So this whole sequence here is just like kind of like Whitney coming to the realization, like, oh shit, like things aren't really gonna go my way, and now she's kind of like in this rejected, depressed state, while Asher is trying to console and be like, hey, like we sold the house, we're progressing, we're doing good, and he's not really gloating about how he's the one that propelled this whole moment. Like he's not really gloating about it. And this feels authentic to me. Like there's moments in relationships where this is common when one partner is maybe less responsive and less communicative, because they kind of don't want to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to, or perhaps they feel dejected. They feel like they lost and the world is against them or something, or they can't really quite verbally admit that they were going things about the wrong way. And it's a little bit, it's kind of, you could call it passive aggressiveness, because she's not very communicative here. She says she's okay, it's all fine, that he would know if she's upset. But this whole episode is basically Whitney taking a loss, and Asher kind of like coming up on top, like, hey, my idea is my insistence that we go get this buyer worked out, and you should probably, respect me for that and give me some points for that, right? And I think Asher's feeling good, and he's not the type of person, like I said, he's not the person to gloat about it, but he's expecting to get some approval at some point once Whitney gets through her little depressive moment here. And he actually asks to open the window, and he does. Whitney's like, sure, whatever. At this point, she's kind of defeated. She's like, whatever, I'm defeated, whatever. Just open the window, which makes the whole atmosphere and temperature in the house go off balance. And it's kind of antithetical to like how she wants to live in this house that was designed in this passive way. So I guess it just indicates like, yeah, like Whitney has basically accepted that she has to compromise, and as part of her personality doesn't really want to admit it. So yeah, that was episode 5. Like not a lot of like major in your face moments like other previous episodes. So I imagine a lot of people may not respond to this one as much as well compared to other episodes, but I thought it was a good character study, good insight on Whitney and Asher, particularly Whitney, and her relationship with her parents. What motivates her. She wants to get out from under their shadow. She doesn't want to be seen like the bad guys like they are. She wants to be seen like the good type of landlord. And then that the episode connects back to the main themes of the show about colonialism and these allies, these like liberals who try to be allies come into this town here and really like aren't a good thing for the town, and have to learn how like what the consequences of their actions are going to be when they try to sell these fancy houses. So it's definitely on that trajectory. It's looking good, looking interesting. We're halfway through pretty much, right? There's 10 episodes. And maybe like we'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll bounce back to an Asher focus episode next week. Maybe another Dougie episode down the line. But still not quite sure where it's gonna end. It appears there's gonna be more episodes being shot coming up. It is fascinating to watch these characters make this TV show. It's kind of like it almost kind of feels like a documentary type of situation, especially like the actors who aren't like well known. They kind of feel like they were just people that were cast from the street, kind of like we saw here in this episode. But just like how the camera works, like how even like in this previous scene where the Asher and Whitney are walking back to the home, which is just like a block, like a few steps away almost from the home they're selling. The camera's behind this fence. It's like a distant, voyeuristic type of decision from the director here, right? I think maybe Nathan directed this episode. And then again from that shot we saw earlier of from inside the window of the neighbor's house, like even here the camera's very distant all the time, so it's really much reflecting like a documentary style, kind of like giving you this feeling that like this is actual, just it's real. It's like it's not a fabricated performance. It has that feeling of it, but of course we know it's probably a lot of it is improvised, but a lot of it is scripted too. So it's like, at least the plot wise, so we know it is a performance, and that's part of like the fun thing about the show is that like there's different all these layers of like what's performance, what's real. Even Whitney questions it, when she the idea of like when she's performing, when she's not. When to that couple, she's like, oh, I kind of forget whether it's real or not, and I wish you were actually the home buyers, for real. And then yeah, so very very cool stuff. I'm digging it. We're gonna keep watching, and we'll keep breaking it down scene by scene of the curse. Sleep tight, everybody. We got another one coming next week.